Welcome, Bronco Nation. My three keys to the game for Boise State versus Air Force. This game is huge for a couple of big reasons. The number one reason is that this is a rivalry game. We all know this is a rivalry game. Air Force has had Boise State's number, memorably 3 wins in a row against Boise State. The only team in their modern FBS history to be able to do that against Broncos, 3 wins in a row, and the only time a conference foe has done that against Boise State on that consistent of a basis. So that memory stings with a lot of Boise State fans. Even Boise State has won the last 4 matchups. Each time they go out and play, it's like they're trying to revenge those 3 losses, because those will always be on the record. And this option offense has honestly given Boise State a lot of trouble during those losses and even during some of these wins. I mean, last year, Boise State allowed 30 points by this Air Force team, which was honestly handicapped with a lot of secondary backup players not on the team because they'd been sent home due to the whole COVID thing. And then Air Force played basically with a skeleton roster, and they still put up 30 points on Boise State defensively. So, rivalry game. But the second big reason this is a huge game for Boise State is that Boise State has a chance to get back towards achieving its number one goal, which is win a Mountain West championship, and it starts with this. The win against BYU, huge, awesome, fantastic, season changing. Boise State getting back on track, getting their mojo back, energizing this fan base, I believe energizing the team as well. I think they'll be coming in here with a lot of momentum from that win. But while that game was huge for a lot of reasons, it did nothing to impact Boise State's number one goal, which is their number one goal every single year, whether they're undefeated with a chance to go to New Year's Six or whether they're 8-4. Boise State is hoping that they're going to be able to play in that Mountain West Championship game, and that's what they're shooting for every single year. So Boise State, a chance to get back on track. They're 1-1 so far this season, and they're playing really their main challenger from the West Division. Now, the West is looking pretty good as far as challenging Boise State in this aspect. Wyoming, a team that could challenge Boise State's going to have to play them. That game might be huge. Colorado State currently leading the division, shouldn't be an issue. But Utah State, a team that Boise State has the head-to-head win, but they also have a head-to-head win over this Air Force team. So if Utah State can get some wins together, if Boise State drops some wins to some very challenging teams, drop some games, some very challenging teams down the road, that could become key as well. But Boise State already has a head-to-head win against Utah State, who's probably the other third main challenger from this group. They're going to need to get one against Wyoming later on, but this game against Air Force is huge because Air Force comes into this game 5-1 and 2-1 Mountain West, and they won against Wyoming last week. So Air Force has set itself up right now to control its own destiny, to be able to get themselves to the Mountain West Championship game if they can get past Boise State in this one. So Air Force, they are not, obviously Air Force they're always going to have this game circled. They're never going to be overlooking it. But this game is huge to them. This is probably, you can never say that the Boise State game is going to be the biggest game of the season because playing Army and playing Navy, playing that Commander Chiefs Trophy, that's really Air Force's main goal. But their Mountain West is a huge goal for Air Force, and it starts with a game against Boise State. So they're going to be hugely motivated coming to this one, and they look very, very good this year. So this is a very, very big game for Boise State versus Air Force. One of the most watchable of the weekend, especially in that late night time slot. Most watchable of that late night time slot for sure. But I think one of the most watchable of the weekend period, and it's going to be an incredible, incredible matchup. So let's get into it. Like I said, late night time slot going to be 7 p.m. Mountain Time. 7 p.m. Mountain Time on FS1. And Boise State is favored by the Nevada, by the gambling associations there. So the stat line there is giving Boise State a 4-point advantage in this one, and then ESPN's giving them a 78.6% chance of winning in this. Like I said, Boise State 3-3, but changed everything last week with the win against BYU, and Air Force coming to this one with a huge win against Wyoming. So both teams coming off huge momentum, season-defining or season-esque defining wins against their opponents here. So Boise State versus Air Force, look at the series history. 6-3 all-time, Boise State leads. But like I said, Air Force went on a run there, and coincidentally, that run was the last time that Boise State had a coaching turnover. It took the last coaching staff from 2014 through 2016, the last 2014, 2015, and 2016. before they could figure out how to defend against this option offense. And honestly, Boise State has never figured out how to fully defend against them. At Boise State, I think they did have one game in that streak there that Boise State's won, that 4-game winning streak where they held Air Force to under 20 points, I believe. But other than that, Air Force has always looked dangerous offensively. It's the defense that's not been necessarily as big a threat to Boise State. Air Force last won a game there in 2016, the last Air Force win at Air Force. But Air Force also owns a win on the blue. Air Force came in and got a win on the blue in 2015. That was huge for Boise State, for Air Force that season. It was a huge win for them, and it was a huge just kick in the teeth to Boise State, who'd already dropped a game to New Mexico on the blue. So Boise State, they've already dropped a game to Nevada. They don't want to drop 2 games in a row. The last time Boise State dropped two regular season games on the blue. They did have a game in 2018. They lost 2 games on the blue, but it wasn't regular season. One of them was the Mountain West Championship game. Last time that Boise State dropped 2 regular season games on the blue, you've got to go back to 2015, and Air Force was that team to get that second win. So there's some history in this rivalry game with defending the blue. And Boise State, under Andy Avalos, that's, number one goal, go out and win the Mountain West. But part of that is defending the blue, and Boise State's already reeling after a loss on the blue. After a loss in Nevada, they are coming with some momentum after the BYU win. All right, so let's talk about top players in this one. Before I get into the players who will be playing in the game, let's talk about players who are going to be absent for Boise State, because that's going to be a key storyline for this matchup. Boise State is going to be without Markel Reed, who's going to be out for the season, it looks like. Tyreek LaBeouf missed last week's game. No word yet on whether he's going to be able to come in and play on this one, but that could be huge. He has 10 tackles on the team, but he has 3 out of the 8 interceptions that Boise State has. So right there, he's sitting basically with a third of the interceptions Boise State's had all season, one player, and he wasn't in last week's game. Boise State's defense managed to step up, but it's going to be huge against this Air Force option offense, which is very difficult to defend against. And then Damon Cole, who was stepping up in place of Markel Reed, ended up exiting in the first half of last week's game, and no clear sign yet on what's going on with him, so he could be out. So the backup to the starter is out as well. So Boise State's missing 2 key cornerbacks in that one cornerback slot. All right, so. And then offense as well looks like they might be without some players. Holani missed last week's game after what looked like a knee injury. It looked like a re-injury to that knee in the Nevada game. Really hoping it's not that. Hoping it's just maybe a tweaking of something else or something unrelated, or maybe a minor re-injury at the very worst case scenario. All thoughts and prayers going out to him, but hoping he can get back in this one. But he exited. He was not present for the BYU matchup. And then Cyrus Abiblikio wasn't present for the second half. He played for a little while in the third quarter, but then exiting in that third quarter and didn't come back in. Van Buren replacing him in the BYU game. He was having a huge game for Boise State, already up over 70 yards, just having a massive, massive game for Boise State in the rushing department before he had to exit. So that could be a huge storyline as well. And then Van Buren in the last series, I believe it was, because he kind of came in and out a couple of times in the second last series, but the last series he exited with some form of injury and didn't come back in. Now I'm hoping that was just the coaches being abundantly cautious. They'd already won the game at that point. Yeah, BYU could have miraculously got a stop and then scored and got an onside, but there was really no time left. I mean, we're talking about like a minute 30, minute 40 on the clock. BYU with almost no timeouts, or no timeouts, I believe, at that point. So they wisely sent in Tyler Crow, came in, finished the game there. But Van Buren came limping off the field there. So Boise State potentially playing without or with only partial strength there. Maybe Van Buren not coming in 100% in this matchup, their top 3 running backs. Boise State always has a position, it looks like, over the last couple of years, and I'm not going to say always because it wasn't that way necessarily coming in to the last couple of seasons, but last season, Boise State's quarterback room took hit after hit after hit. I mean, when the BYU-Boise State game, they were basically playing with their 4th-string quarterback in that matchup. And this year, it's been the running back department. So hopefully, whatever's going on with this bad luck run that Boise State's had, hopefully another position group doesn't get targeted next year, knock on some wood there. But whatever's going on, hopefully Boise State's able to overcome it, and they have been able to overcome it so far, especially in the defensive side, with players stepping up. And we're going to talk about that later. But let's talk about top players actually going to be in this one that we know of for sure. So top players for Boise State. Offensively, you're looking at Bachmeier and Shakir. Every single game, pretty much, these guys have been in the mix for top players of the game. And especially this matchup with the running game, already being questionable, but Boise State really, they were able to establish it last week, and that was awesome. That was great to see. But with, the just when the offensive line seems to be gelling together, now there's no running backs, it looks like. So Boise State, there's some questions in the running game if they can even continue the momentum that they've found in the running game. Really over the last 2 weeks, they kind of started to find something in the Nevada game and really put it together in BYU. But the passing game is going to be really a point of emphasis for Boise State in this one. Like I said, with the questions in the running game, just with the injuries that have been hit in the running backs there, and then the fact that the running game all season has been a struggle, even though Boise State seems to have been turning around. This is a Air Force defense that gives up under 100 yards rushing every single game. This is a good Air Force defense against the run. They're also good against the pass, but they give up more in the pass than they do against the run. So this Boise State offense is going to have to be on key, they're going to be on target, they're going to be hot, they're going to be on fire to be able to win this one. And it's going to come down to Bachmeier and Shakir. Bachmeier looking looking the best I've seen him all season. Statistically, was it his best night? No. But decision-making perspective, we finally saw a Bachmeier that looked calm, collected, controlled. He didn't complete the most passes he's completed, but he didn't put balls where I thought into positions that were really bad decisions. He didn't make those bad decisions. He didn't push the ball where it shouldn't go, and he didn't try to do too much. He trusted his team. He trusted his offense. Part of that had to do with the success of the running game, but he trusted his offense as a whole overall and became part of that offense, became a key, became a cog in that offense versus trying to be the whole machine at once. And it doesn't matter how good your engine's not going to be able to run without the wheels. It's not going to be able to run without the frame. And Bachmeier has to find that out, and I think he's starting to find that out, that he can't do this whole thing by himself. And it really looked like that last week. I think he'll come into this one, but he's got to come in. He's got to come in collected. He's got to come in calm, and he's got to come in focusing on completing at a high percentage like he has in the past, while also not pushing the ball into positions that it shouldn't be. And part of that's going to be having key receivers, key people he can hit, and that's going to come down to Khalil Shakir here. 588 yards receiving on the season, but only 66 last week. It was weird. I don't know if BYU had a scheme that was keeping Shakir out of it, but Shakir really, I don't think he caught his first ball until the second quarter there. And then he actually had, out of the 66, 43 of those came in the second, and like 34 or 36 of them or something came on one play, one deep ball that Khalil Shakir got in the second half there. So Shakir was a key playmaker in that game, but it was much reduced role to what he's been seeing over the last really since he came back from injury. So he's going to have to be huge in this one. He's going to have to find ways to get open against an Air Force defense that's been very stingy against the pass. I have it written down here somewhere. I know I do. But this is an Air Force defense that is giving up under 190 yards passing every game, and I can't find where I wrote that. So, oh well. They're giving up under 190 yards passing every game, and they're giving up under 100 yards rushing every game. So it's a very good defense. So Khalil Shakir is going to be key in the screen game, in the wide receiver end around, in the wildcat, in the passing game. He is the playmaker, especially with Halani and Cyrus potentially being out of this one. Van Buren, a back that with a good O-line can do a lot of great things, and they started showing that against BYU, but he's not necessarily he's a running back that's going to be able to grind forward for those yards, but he doesn't have top-end speed, and he doesn't have maneuverability or next-level maneuverability. So he really needs a team around him, and he's not going to necessarily be a player who can take over a game. Well, Khalil Shakir can take over a game. Boise State's going to have to hope that their quarterback and their main wide receiver here can be on the same page early in this one, and Boise State can take advantage of that. All right, let's talk about Air Force. This is a very, very dangerous Air Force team. This is one of the best Air Force teams I've seen in a while. Last season, Air Force, of course, going 3-3, but they were playing with a skeleton roster, like I already said, and they were trying to figure out a way to move on from their absolute star quarterback of the last couple years there. So they were trying to figure out. Zeke Daniels was trying to figure out some things, and he really found a way to step in, especially this season. Started showing some things last year, but has found a way to really step into that absence left by Donald Hammond. Zeke Daniels has already thrown for 494 yards passing. All of last season, he had 433 yards passing. He's already, in the first 6 games here, thrown for 494 yards passing, which they played 6 games last year. 6 games so far. So he only, in the first 6 games last year, though, he only had 433. He's already 60 yards beyond that, 61 yards beyond that. 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Now, it's a typical kind of what you'd see out of an option quarterback. He's completing about 50% of his passes there. But considering the way that he's doing it, and last week's game, where he actually completed 7 out of 10 of his passes were over 100 yards, he has the ability to be an accurate quarterback. And Air Force definitely has a passing game as part of their offense here, which is incredibly dangerous for a defense that's already going to be tested by that option run game. And when you add in a capable passing game, a quarterback that can complete 7 out of 10, even if it's only 10 attempts, if they can complete 7 out of those for over 100 yards, that's a quarterback that can really, really hurt you. And I watched that Wyoming game, and Air Force has some good receivers here. That's what the other key player here is. Micah Davis has over 200 yards receiving, 220 yards receiving, 2 touchdowns. In typical Air Force fashion, he's also involved in the running game. He also has 227 yards rushing for 4 touchdowns. So, but like I said, an all-around athlete, that's the main point I'm getting at too. A guy who can break yards, he can run like a running back and catch like a receiver. He's only 5'11", but he uses every single inch of that stature there to really be able to go up and get some of these balls. A really great threat for Air Force. And then running back-wise, Brad Roberts. So Zeke Daniels, 494 through the air, 442 yards rushing, 8 touchdowns. That's impressive. Well, Brad Roberts through 6 games has 680 yards rushing and 6 touchdowns. So it's not just Zeke Daniels doing it by himself. He's got a full team around him. That's what makes Air Force so dangerous right now, especially to a young Boise State team. Not necessarily young as far as legacy goes, but this is a young Boise State team. This is a brand new coaching staff, and it's a especially defensively, a lot of players who are getting some of their first starts or first full seasons of full starting experience, especially considering the kind of weird not full season that last year was with COVID. And honestly, a lot of these players are sophomores and freshmen as well, especially now with the injuries. So this is going to be a young defense that's going to be tested by a very capable running game, as always in Air Force, and now capable passing game as well. Very, very dangerous. All right, so let's get into my 3 keys of the game. So first one here, and it might seem like an obvious one, but honestly, when you get to playing a team like Air Force, you've got to get back to basics, and that's going to be cover assignments and play one play at a time. With the option offense, it all comes down to assignments. Every single guy has to be able to trust every single other guy on the defense. You're playing as one team unit. You aren't playing as one player trying to go out and do it all. Defenses that are big play defenses, which Boise State has been this year, but defenses that are big play defenses that have that star player, that star power that they're really relying on, those teams might have success against most other competition. When it comes down to an option offense, honestly, it's a very simple scheme, but it's incredibly hard to defend against because you don't see it a lot. Boise State, of all the teams they play this year, this is the one team that they're going to have to prepare for option-wise. So it's not like you can just tweak a couple things in practice to say, okay, this team is running this scheme, which on the wide framework is basically the same thing we've been facing all year. You might face a team that's got a quarterback that's a little bit more mobile, or you might face a team that likes to mix in a couple wrinkles. But really, in this modern age of football, pretty much everybody's running the same generic kind of slightly up-tempo, no huddle, spread offense. Pretty much everybody's running that. You'll have a couple teams running a pistol, but again, that's not dramatically different from the spread offense. Well, the option offense is completely different. It's a play calling book from a different era, and this is a Boise State team that doesn't face this a lot, and it's a Boise State team that has struggled against this in the past. So what this key comes down to, cover your assignments. Every single guy, when it comes to option offense, we played them all the time in high school because high school, pretty much everybody runs option. So when it comes down to option offense, you have a hat on a hat. You have your guy, you have an assignment that you're covering. If that guy doesn't get the ball, then you're freed up to maybe go make a play. But even, option offenses are tricky. You might think that your guy's not getting the ball, but he isn't. So really, it's kind of go and tackle your guy every single time, regardless whether he's getting the ball or not. My defensive coach used to say, at every single play, I want to see 3 guys on the ground. I want to see the quarterback, the running back, and the pitchman on the ground, whether they have the ball or not. And that's really the kind of mentality that you have to be playing. You have to be playing, so usually the defensive end gets the quarterback. The linebacker gets the running back, and the cornerback or safety gets the pitch man, who's usually a wide receiver or sometimes another running back in the backfield. That's usually how it goes. The rest of the defense then fills into those different slots, covering their different areas, covering their different zones, whatever the defense is running. But those three are the most key. And that's how Boise State's got to be playing. Every single snap, they've got to be coming down. Their assignment, their man, that is the entire field to them. That's the entire defense. That's all they care about on the offensive side, is going out and getting that one person, and that's got to be a single track mindset, because the rest of your defense is filling in for you and taking the rest of the assignment so you can focus in on that one thing. Now, having said that, teams, especially like Air Force with a quarterback who can throw the ball, they will try to suck you in and suck you in and suck you in and run it up, fullback run up middle, quarterback keep, running back pitch outside, whatever it is, try to suck that secondary down closer and closer and closer, especially if a couple guys aren't following their assignments and are letting guys break free. Now, the secondary is thinking, man, I've got to be right there because I can't trust this guy to go out and get his assignment. And if you start doing that, if you start sneaking closer to the line, Air Force is going to hit you for a big play right over the top. Boise State has seen it every single year that they've played Air Force. Air Force has done that at least once, and some years, especially when Air Force has won, they've done it multiple times. So this is an Air Force team that can hit you with passing plays even without having to draw up some kind of trick, rare situation. They have the passing play as part of their normal offense. But that tendency to sneak up the line is going to be especially key, because Air Force is still going to be running that offense where they try to draw you in and draw you in. So the safeties, especially the safeties and the cornerbacks, if they're not assigned to covering a specific pitchman, they have to be playing their part of the field. And that's what it really comes back to when I'm saying play one play at a time. Regardless of what happened, if they ran it last time, it's a whole new day. It's like the first play of the game every single time. You can't let what the offense is doing when you're playing an option offense. You cannot let what the offense is doing drive your decision making as a defender. That might seem weird, because usually when you're playing different offenses, that's what you do. You start noticing trends in what the offense is doing. Okay, boy, they like to go to this running back a lot, or they like to pass to this receiver, or they're running this kind of play a lot. That's your trend as a defensive thinker, as a defensive player, is to notice those trends and start keying in on them. Well, and against an option offense, you cannot do that, because as soon as you start to key in what you think is a trend, they're going to hit you over the top for something completely different. So this Boise State team, number one key, cover assignments and play one play at a time, and that's what they're going to have to do to stop this option offense here. All right, second one here is O-line, show what it is made of. The game against Nevada, new format, new offensive line, new center in there, and they struggled at times, but they also started to show improvement. I tweeted out during that game, Boise State's got a running game. They're starting to show life, especially comparing it to the BYU game, it wasn't much, but comparing it to the rest of the season, Boise State was really showing a running game in that first half. Now, a little bit of a different scheme. I think two starters out on the offensive line against BYU. A center who's actually been able to practice through. First time starting against Nevada and now working out those kinks in that game and then in practice. Boise State came out and looked like a completely different team running the ball and just offensive line play altogether. The reason they were having so much success running the ball against BYU is because their players weren't getting hit behind the backfield, getting hit in the backfield. Boise State's players were being able to make it to at least that second level of the defense, and they were being able to go out and have success regardless of who was in there. When Cyrus went out, Van Buren had success. When Van Buren went out, Tyler Crowe even had success. And I'm not saying even because he's a very powerful player, but he's not a player with a lot of experience, and he was still able to go out there and have success when he was running the ball. Now, he also showed a lot of gumption and being able to power through a lot of players. I mean, boy, does he drive the ball. There's a reason that he got put on scholarship. But the point is that Boise State was finally getting push up front. So whatever they did, because they did a little bit of tweaking after the Nevada game, but that unit that started to find itself in the Nevada game found itself against BYU. That's why Boise State won that game. I mean, there was a lot of reasons why Boise State won that game. Key in that was turnovers. But the fact that Boise State was able to give their quarterback time in the pocket so they wasn't rushing, wasn't making bad decisions, and wasn't turning the ball over himself, and the fact that the running game, Boise State out of the 3 scores that they had there, 2 of those came on the ground. So Boise State, yeah, right, because there's 4 field goals, 2 touchdowns. So 12, 20, yeah. So actually, I think because they didn't have a passing touchdown in that one. I'm sorry, I'm getting off track. I've been thinking about this game so much I've forgotten exactly how each of the points was made. But it doesn't matter. I'm getting sidelined. The main point is they gave their quarterback time in the pocket, and they were able to push the ball up front and find movement in the running game. And Boise State, they found themselves against that BYU team, and they have to show that in this one because it's going to be huge in this because Boise State, like I said, they might only have Van Buren, and Van Buren's not going to be pushing the ball the whole time. They're going to have to start putting in Tyler Crow. They're going to have to start putting in Tequeen Tyler. They're going to have to start putting in these players that aren't experienced, that don't have a lot of experience running against this defenses in general, but coming in against an Air Force team that is a good defense, that is a hard spot to be in. So Boise State's offensive line is going to have to fill in for that lack of experience. They're going to have to be the difference makers in this one. They're going to have to make it so it doesn't matter who's carrying the rock. I could be running the ball, and Boise State's still got to be able to go out and make those yards count because Boise State against a defense like this, because the Air Force offense is going to be able to drive the ball downfield. Boise State's defense, I think that they're going to play. I hope that they play well in this one. I have confidence in them. I have confidence in Andy Avalos. But at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter who's on the defensive side for Boise State, unless a lot of things go your way. Air Force is going to be able to go out and score. Now, the way you play can limit that. I mean, hopefully Boise State, a good defensive effort would probably be 21 points. That's what I would say would be a great defensive effort against this Air Force team. But that's still 21 points. And this is a very, very good Air Force defense that can kill you offensively and defensively. So the offensive line play is going to be key in this one, especially, like I said, inexperienced running backs potentially coming in this one, questions in the running game, but also having to rely on the passing game and having to put the offense through, like it has been all season, having to go through that passing game with Hank Bachmeier. The more time that you can give him in the pocket, the less mistakes he's going to make, the more chances Boise State's going to have to win this one. So first two keys here, cover assignments and play. One play at a time. Second one, O-line, show what it's made of. Last key here, Boise State's future step up. What I mean by that, all of the Boise State players that are going to be part of that next generation of Boise State, that are going to build that next decade of dominance, they're already starting to have chances to play now. We're already seeing the future playing out in front of our very eyes. And a lot of that has had to do with defense, but a lot of it, a lot of that has had to do with injuries in the defense and in the offense side, especially the defensive side, especially last week against BYU. But another part of that is just Andy Avalos going out and finding his guys, finding the people that are already on this team, and finding the guys that have the mindset that he wants to build around for the future going forward. The seniors and the juniors that are already on this team are making huge contributions. They're a big part of this team. They're a big part of why Boise State has been able to start turning themselves around this year. But the freshmen and the sophomores are showing a spark and an energy that I honestly haven't seen out of defense in a very, very long time. And just for instance, last week, Boise State out a bunch of players in the secondary. BYU should have been able to throw the ball all over them. And they end up having one of the worst passing games that they've had the entire season. Hall should have been all over the place with that, and the defense was able to step up, and that was because the second generation, the Kaniho, and I actually forgot to mention him when I was talking about key players of the game. The defensive key players of the game, I'm just going to backtrack real quick here, are the Kaniho brothers. I'm going to mess up their names, so I'm not good with Pacific Islander names, but Kukula and Kanohi. I hope I got close on those. But anyhow, the Kaniho brothers, they stepped up big. Now, one of them's already senior, has been making some big plays. But his brother's a freshman. He made some big plays. And that's who the next generation, the future Boise State, has to make those big plays. Boise State's defense here, like I said, Kaniho stepping up big. Banya, a sophomore defensive end who's made some huge plays, had another big game last week. Cornerback Tubner, big game for Boise State last week. Number 34, all over the field. These guys stepped up last week, and they're going to have to step up big in this one because a defense against an option gets worn down quick. And you find out how deep your team is very, very quickly in a game against an option offense because it is just getting every single time you're lining up and getting smacked in the mouth, smacked in the mouth, smacked in the mouth over and over and over again. And even if you're having success against them, it is grinding. I mean, the offensive line is just falling into you and you're getting smacked by a massive fullback or running back every time. A game against a team that runs the ball all the time is always going to be exhausting, but especially against an option offense, and that's not just running it, but is also pitching it out all over the place, playing with speed. An academy team doesn't have the biggest guys on the field, but they go out and they recruit athletes. They recruit guys with speed that are able to make up for, they play fast and they make up for that size difference because of their play calling ability and because of the type of players that they have out there on the field. So they're going to get exhausted. Boise State's already got freshmen or sophomores stepping into key roles because of players being out on defense. Well, now they're going to have to reach even further back in the depth chart because players are going to be getting tired. They're going to be getting minor injuries. They're going to get pulled off the field. They're going to have breathers. And that next generation, that future, the depth on the depth chart is going to be exposed. And we're going to get a chance to see with the next couple of seasons of Boise State what that foundation is going to look like. So that's defense, but even offensively as well, Boise State's got to have guys step up. Like I already talked about, Tyler Crow here and Taqueen Tyler, they've got to be able to step up for Boise State with Cyrus and George, with Halani both being out of this game potentially, and Van Buren being the number one back. Those guys are going to have to step up. The wide receiver department, right now we've got Khalil Shakir, Octavius Evans, and Cole are all doing great jobs for, Cobbs. I don't know why I said Cole. Stephon Cobbs are doing a great job for Boise State as a top three. But C.T. Thomas was out versus BYU, a good chance he'll be out versus this one, and really he's looked off all year anyway. Cutter, who was stepping up and kind of filling in as a fourth for Boise State's offense, he left the game injured, was limping, looked like something had happened to his lower body, knee type of area. Really looked like he took a big hit there. So Boise State's going to have to find out who on this depth chart can step up for the wide receiver, because you can't just play a game with three great wideouts. You still can't play a game with just three wideouts the whole time. So Bowens has shown a lot of good potential so far this season. But who else? Who else on this team? Because we really haven't seen anybody else besides Capels, who's made one catch. We haven't really seen anybody, and it's time for Boise State to go into. They got a big recruiting class for wide receivers, some really top tier talent, and it's time for Boise State to show what that talent can do going forward for this team. So I'm talking Capels, yes. McAllister, 6'3" McAllister, a big player, a player who was highly recruited, a guy who I think can make some big impact. He was on my preview of the season. I thought that this was a guy who'd come in and play right away and make some big impacts for Boise State. Haven't seen him this season, so the coach is obviously seeing something different. But it's time for him to step up. Richmond and Ben Ford and other guys on this on this depth chart, young guys on this depth chart, but these guys I've named specifically from that recruiting class: Capels, McAllister, Richmond, and Ben Ford. They need to be stepping up in this one, because Boise State's got to find those players that are going to be able to support this passing offense, which is probably going to have to be dominant again with those potential question marks in the running game there. Boise State's going to have to find those guys that are going to be able to step up. And so Boise State's always attacking the future. Well, it's time for the future to come and attack the present, because Boise State needs them to get the win against Air Force in this one. All right. This is my three keys to the game: cover assignments and play one play at a time, O-line show what it's made of, and the Boise's future step up. So just finishing off real quick, summarizing, and then I'll give you my prediction for this one. So Boise State, this is a Boise State team that is finding itself. They found themselves, I think, against BYU, but they've been finding themselves all season. Every single game has basically seemed like a major test for this coaching staff, and that's what you're going to see, I think, with young coaching staffs. Every game's going to kind of feel like that, but especially in this season with the schedule that Boise State had, this was a schedule that fans were licking their chops at, thinking that if Boise State can play with this schedule, they're going to be contended for the New Year's Six and maybe beyond. Unfortunately, issues with just basically coaching turnover end up kind of killing that. But this is still a Boise State team that is moving forward and showing great success. And every single game, this coaching staff and this team is getting better. And so it's a team that's starting to find itself. Like I said, that Oklahoma State game should not have been as close as it was, and it was. I'm saying this is a good Oklahoma State team. They're undefeated, number 12 in the nation, and they only beat Boise State by 1 point, and Boise State should have won that game if not for the refs. Boise State versus Nevada, there were a lot of mistakes made in that second half as far as turnovers and everything go, but Boise State played pretty well in that one. It started to show life in the running game. And then Boise State goes out and beats an undefeated top 10 team on the road in BYU. So this is a team that's gotten better and better and better each week, and they're coming into this Air Force game with a huge head of steam after kind of finding who they are this season, and they're going to build off of that. Well, they're also facing an Air Force team that's coming in with momentum, because this is an Air Force team that's established, that is looking like their 2019 selves, that is very, very deep. Like I said, a lot of their secondary players, a lot of their depth chart taking advantage of the COVID year to have a very, very rare red shirt type year. You don't usually get that in the academy schools. Well, they were able to get an exception there and a waiver from the military to have that red shirt year due to COVID, and so they're coming in with players that are far more experienced than a usual Air Force team and far deeper than a usual Air Force team. And it's an Air Force team that is already good, that would have played much better last year if not for being on a skeleton roster. So this is a very good Air Force team. They're showing that with a 500 record. I think they deserve to be ranked. And this is also an Air Force team that is coming in with a big win last week against Wyoming. That was a huge win against Wyoming at home. Now they have to go play Boise State on the road. And this is an Air Force team that knows how to win, and they know how to win at Boise as they've shown in the past. Like I said, the last time Boise State lost 2 games on the blue during the regular season, 2015, that second loss was to Air Force. So Boise State, this coaching staff has a lot to prove in this one. Like they've had to prove something to prove every single week. Like I said, they had to prove in the first game against UCF that Boise State was still a dominant team. Didn't necessarily show that in that game. They had to prove against the Big 12 matchup against Oklahoma, a huge team coming in. Boise State could still compete at the top level in the Power 5. And I think they showed that, but they didn't get the win. And then Boise State proving that they can protect the blue, didn't get that against Nevada. But like I said, they've been making improvements every single time. I never lost faith, and I won't lose faith in this coaching staff. They are showing us, I didn't lose faith, and they showed us, sorry, I'm kind of babbling here, but I didn't lose faith during that time when they were kind of trying to build themselves. And last week they showed us why we should have faith in them, because they went out and got a big, like I said, another test. Can Boise State go on the road? Is Boise State irrelevant now? First time they've had a 2-3 start of the season since 2001. Are they still a relevant team that needs to be discussed as one of the top teams in Group of 5? They went out and they showed that they still deserve to be in that conversation. Now, I'm not saying that Boise State deserves to be in the New Year's Six conversation this year, but Boise State shows that this coaching staff is pushing them towards being that team that is the top team in the conversation every single year. And they're going to show that going forward in the next couple of seasons. And that's what that win against BYU showed. This is a team that's been getting better every single week. Now, this is a chance, like I said, I'm saying showed a lot because this is a massive season of tests for this coaching staff. So this week, what they're showing is they can protect the blue, and they can protect it against one of Boise State's main rivalry. But more than that, they're showing that they can protect against the option offense. This is one of the biggest tests of a coaching staff, is the option offense, because it takes so much discipline and it takes a full team defense to cover an option offense. It really, really does. So this is a massive, massive test. Like I said, the last coaching staff took 3 seasons to figure this out. Boise State is building on 4 wins, but it's a brand new coaching staff that's coming in and facing this one this year. So Boise State has a chance to prove that this coaching staff that has the ability to defend this option offense, but also shows that if they can win this game and if they can defend against this offense, it shows that this is a Boise State coaching staff that is able to build a complete team defense and that is focused on the fundamentals and able to install that focus in their players. So huge, huge game for Boise State this week. Before I talk about the score, I know I'm pushing 37 minutes. It's one of my longer games, but I think it's worth it. This is a rivalry game. It's important to talk these things through. I want to say one last thing. You'll notice that I don't have the Air Force banner turned upside down. That's intentional. Every single game this season and every other game this season, the banner of the opposing team has been turned upside down. Slight towards the opposing team, but just good rivalry senses. This is a rivalry game, and Air Force isn't turned upside down, and that is because of the massive amount of respect that I have and that Boise State as a whole has for the Air Force community. When Air Force came into the stadium in 2019, they were cheered onto the stadium. They were given a standing ovation as they came onto the stadium, because at the end of the day, football is just football. It's a really, really fun diversion. It's an awesome, awesome chance to get together and to build together as a community. And it's important, but it's not as important as what these young men and women are doing for our country. This is at the end of the day, these young men on the football team and the young men and women in the Air Force program as a whole, they're going to go out and they're going to forget about football, and they're going to go out and put their lives on the line for this country. Now, maybe not their actual life or death lines on the country for all of them, but they're going to put their lives as a whole, their time, their energy, and their efforts, they're going to put that on the line for their country, and they're going to devote their lives to at least 6 years and most of them a lot more than that, for their country and for our nation as a whole. So at the end of the day, rivalries are important. Football is awesome. But at the end of the day, what it really comes down to is the respect that Boise State has for the Air Force and for our military as a whole. Every single Boise State fan, and I think I can use an absolute term in this, but every single Boise State fan is connected to the Air Force in one of three ways. They either have served, they either have someone in their family who has served, or someone in their close friend groups who has served, and that's pretty much universal across the board. And in my case, it's all three. Boise State versus Air Force is a fantastic rivalry. I hope that Boise State goes out and kicks their butts in this one, but at the end of the day, we as a Bronco Nation salute the men and women who serve our country, and I will never turn the Air Force banner upside down because it represents something bigger than football and bigger than ourselves. This represents our country, this represents what we're made of as a nation, and it represents the amount of respect that Boise State has for those men and women who go out and serve our country. So that's my last little push there. I just want to talk about putting this rivalry into perspective. So Boise State versus Air Force, like I said, one team coming in, a lot of steam, developed, has themselves put together 5-1 record. A team that's 3-3, that's been struggling this season, but had a big win last week and seems to have found themselves coming in. Both teams coming in with the momentum. Who gets the win in this one? I think Boise State finds a way to defend the blue, does not let themselves drop to 2 losses on the blue for the first time since 2015. Andy Avalos, incredibly motivated, knows what this matchup means, knows what a win here, and more importantly, knows what a loss means for this program. Boise State goes out, does a good job offensively with 31 points, gives up some plays, and that's going to happen defensively, but holds out for a 27-point, holds the offense to 27 points here. So 31 to 27 point victory is my prediction for Boise State versus Air Force. Apologize for the length of the video on this one. I know a couple times I went rambling there, but this is a big game. This is a rivalry game. Thank you for watching this video. Please let me know in the comments who you think is going to win this one, how you think this is going to turn out. At the end of the day, though, we salute the men and women who serve our country, and thank you for watching this video. Go Big Blue!